Hey guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. This is going to be a fun episode with my friend Daniel Franco of Burnt Timber Outfitters. This is Thursday, the day before the opening archery elk season in Arizona. It starts tomorrow, Friday. Daniel, what's going on out there?
Not much. It's been a little bit of a slow start this year. Been a little surprised, but it's been hot, which isn't helping. And I'm sure the full moon's not helping either, but they're definitely starting to ramp up a little bit. It's been getting just a little bit better every day, so we're expecting some pretty good things this year.
So with the slow start, some of the benefits of a slow start, can you talk a little bit about years that you've seen them where they're just blowing their hats off, and then a year like this where it's, slow start, how that's, can play into the hands of the hunters?
Well, there's a couple of different benefits to it, as well as some disadvantages. But the benefits, with the slow start, if you've got a target bull that you're really trying to kill, a big mature bull, and with a slow start, a lot of times they won't be cowed up yet. They won't have their big harems of cows, so you'll catch them traveling quite a bit, just because nothing's coming into heat yet, nothing's hot, so they'll bump around quite a bit. They'll travel, they'll move, they'll kind of go over and check these cows, circle back over, check these cows. So that's a great time to try to kill big mature bulls before they gather up their big group of cows, and then you're fighting the cows, obviously. So the other benefit is, they start out slower, so they're not going to get broke up near as fast. And I've yet to see any two bulls even get remotely close to each other. As soon as one starts to get a little close to the other, one or both of them will actually peel off and head the other direction, which is good. Less confrontation, less broken points, so gives you a little more time to get on your target bulls and get them killed before there's a chance of any broken points. So.
Yeah, for the listeners out there that haven't listened to podcasts with Daniel Daniel's based right there in the heart of 3C and born and raised in Heber, Arizona. Daniel, give us a report. I know you're working 3C and 4B, that kind of area this year pretty hard. What do conditions look like in each unit, maybe compared to normal? And just what's the overall, is it dry, pond water catching, or is it super dry, spotty, and compare the units a little bit?
Well, as far as 3C is concerned, we did not get our monsoon moisture this year like we typically do. It's still fairly green, in some parts more than others, but for the most part, it's still fairly green. The rains that we did get in end of July and August were very spotty, very isolated. So some areas greened up a little better than others, but for the most part across the unit, it's pretty dry. The grass is dry, it's pretty crunchy, which normally this time of year we've had so much rain that it's typically pretty quiet walking. So that's going to be a challenge this year. It's pretty noisy out there, just walking around and trying to slip in on, a herd of elk or on a bull. It's going to be a little difficult. Most of the ponds, the majority of the ponds in 3C did catch water. They do have water, so water is not an issue. And like I said, for the most part, it's pretty green, so elk can kind of be wherever they want to be in the unit at this point. On the other side of the road, however, in 4B, it's not the same story. There's quite a few dry tanks in 4B, and obviously the further north you go, the more dry tanks you find. So water is a little bit of an issue, and there's some areas that are decent as far as green grass, and there's other areas that are pretty burnt that didn't get a whole lot of rain. So I think that's going to kind of centralize your elk in the areas where there's the better feed in the water. So that's going to kind of be the key there in 4B from what I've seen. So yeah, similar, but pretty different, even though they're, only a couple miles apart and separated by a highway. But the general consensus all across the board is it is pretty dry. We could definitely use some rain to quiet it down. It's pretty crunchy out there.
What are you seeing as far as antler potential, as far as growth? Is it as good as you've ever seen it? Is it up there with as good as you've ever seen it? Where are we at?
Well, it's a little hard to tell right now. I still don't believe that the majority of our bulls have shown up from the reservation yet in 3C. But based on what we have seen, I think this is going to be a banner year. We're seeing young bulls with some phenomenal antler growth. We're seeing mature bulls that look really, really good. This is definitely going to be a year of extra points. We have seen a ton of extras this year, inline sevens, kickers, flyers, you name it. It's crazy the amount of extra points that we're seeing this year. It's going to be a little bit of a unicorn, I think, to shoot a straight typical 6-point this year, because everything through a flyer, a kicker, an inline, something. It's crazy. It's great. It's some of the best antler growth I've seen in quite a while. So
that's awesome. Now in 3C, tomorrow actually starts the early rifle hunt. They put the early rifle hunt in front of the archery hunt, and from the sounds of it, with not a lot of reservation bulls showing up in 3C, which we had talked about on a prior podcast, there was some concern that some of those best bulls that you're usually, used to wanting to target and focus on those early rifle hunts, they're not even in the unit yet. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you're spot on that. There's, it's pretty slow. It's just been so hot and full moon that they're not talking a lot. Normally by now you can go out in the morning and get on 5 or 6 different bulls and get a look at them and keep moving. They're shut down way early in the mornings. Some nights they're not even starting up until after dark as far as bugling. So it's going to be a slow start for the rifle hunt. It's going to be tough. Next week is forecasted all in the highs in the 80s, lows in the upper 40s to low 50s, which really is not going to help that rifle hunt. So unless some cows start really coming into heat and the winds are blowing out of the north and the reservation can smell it and get over here, it's probably going to be a little slow. So it's, kind of interesting how it just played out this year with being as hot and dry as it is, that it's definitely going to have a slow start. So I'm anticipating the archery hunt to be, ramped up and ready to go by the 20th when it starts, because by then it's, stuff's going to be in motion and cows are going to be coming into heat, and it's going to be game on. So
as far as activity, that archery hunt, the way things are shaping up with it being a dry monsoon and then being fairly lethargic, plus throw in the full moon, opening weekend, and still will be relatively full, that whole first week. I mean, for those guys sitting on a 3C archery tag right now, it's probably the best thing that could have happened to them.
Yeah, that's. I would agree with you there. It's just based on what we're seeing here these last couple of days in 3C. It's going to be a tough first couple of days. That's for dang sure on the rifle hunt. So that could just make that archery hunt even that much better.
For the guys that are listening that aren't in 3C, but anywhere across the state or even New Mexico for that matter, when you're going to be elk hunting this weekend, Daniel, dealing with the full moon, dealing with warm temperatures, as someone that's, elk hunted as long as you have, what are some of the things that you're thinking about in your mind, with your mindset, not only with how you're preparing, but, with your tactics on the ground, with actually your game plan? How does that, what kind of tips could you give for those guys that are going to be hunting hot temperatures and full moon?
Well, as far as hot temperatures, water is going to be a huge key. I've been spending quite a bit of time. The bulls aren't bugling real late in the morning, so once they get done bugling, I've been spending a good couple of hours driving around, checking tanks, checking different guzzlers, trick tanks, everything just to see where the water sources are, because that's going to be a big key, especially early on. Like in a New Mexico or a 4B or 10 or whatever. I mean, they're going to have to hit water. It's going to be in the 80s. It's going to be hot, and they're going to water. Something that I've already seen going into this is it seems to me like the majority of their watering activity is already after dark, and I would attribute that to the full moon. I think they're not getting to water sources until after dark or early in the morning before light, and that's when they're watering. So that hopefully that doesn't play out for the entire hunt, but I can see that being a little bit of an issue right now, where I don't know that they're going to be coming in during shooting light to a water source.
Do you think a lot of people that are sitting on this 14-day archery hunt and they've been raring and ready to go, and some of those people can't hunt the full 14 days? I've been getting a lot of people asking me, man, with the conditions the way they are, would you hunt the last 10 days or the first 10 days? And I've been telling people to hunt the last 10 days or last 7 days. Yeah, I'm curious your thoughts on that as well.
Well, so for the average person, I would say absolutely. I think the later in the hunt is going to be the best part. The only wild card there is if you've got a specific bull that you're targeting that you really want to kill. As long as he's not traveling a bunch and kind of set where he wants to rut, he just doesn't have cows yet, then the beginning of the hunt could be your best chance to get him killed. But I would say, yeah, for the most part, the last 10 days of the hunt is going to be the best. And that's why I think that 3C archery hunt's going to be really good, because it's, it doesn't start until the 20th, so it's going to start up right when they're ramping up and ready to go. So,
Daniel, I know you're busy. Would you give the guys listening, archery elk hunters in general, a couple tips that you think will help them throughout this season here?
Well, the very first thing that comes to mind, and I see it every year, is you've got to get the wind right. The wind is either your best friend or your worst enemy when it comes to elk hunting. And time after time after time, year after year, I see guys walk into bugling bulls with the wind at their back, blow them out, and run it for them, run it for everybody. The number one key to elk hunting, in my opinion, is the wind. You've got to get the wind and then work into the elk. Another thing, and I'm probably going to get crucified for this, but that's okay. Another thing is I am not a big caller. I love to call elk, but when I am trying to kill an elk, I don't use my calls hardly at all, I'll be honest. I am more of the stealthy, slip into a herd of elk, wait for the herd bull to make a mistake and walk by. And if I have to, then I will use a soft, quiet cow call to get them to stop, just in order to get a shot. All too often I see guys walking through the woods, just squeezing hoochie mama and blowing a bugle, and 99 times out of 100, the bull grabs his cows and heads the exact opposite direction, and a lot of times not even making a peep. So I think, guys, it's fun to call in elk. It's one of the funnest things to do. I love it, but there's a time and a place for it, and I think guys just way overuse their elk calls. If you tune that down just a little bit, even cut it in half, I think you'll be surprised at how much more success you'll have and how many more opportunities you'll get in on bulls.
Those are good tips for sure. And I think using the call at the opportune time, you would be the first one to say yes, absolutely. But, just so much calling out there, and guys are fired up to call, but a lot of them, even the best callers are not great all the time, and so you end up screwing up a lot. If you go into the hunt and that's all you want to do is call bulls, then so be it. But if you're one of those guys, I get questions a lot where guys are like, I've killed a handful of bulls, but nothing big. And, well, a lot of times you've got to do other things than calling, isolate, find the bull first, then move in. And then, when you end up calling, you end up calling a lot of the satellite, the smaller bulls. And that's why, the last 6 bulls you've shot are small little bulls, because those are the ones that tend to just come running to the call. And so guys are like, wow, I guess I never really thought of it like that.
Exactly, and then you call in a satellite bull that you didn't even know was there potentially. He comes running in, sees you, gets your wind, and where's the first place he's going to run? He's going to run right back into that herd with the cows and that bull, and off they go. So that's another reason that I just don't call that much, because number one, it kind of pins you down. Once you call, you can't really move. You're kind of stuck, because you start moving, elk are now looking your way. I like to be able to just sneak in, as quiet as I can, slip around, keep an eye, almost like a spot and stock hunt, so to speak. But inevitably if you're going to call in a bull, more than likely it's going to be one of the small satellite bulls, unless you catch a big bull at just that opportune time, which happens, and I've seen it and we've done it. But I've guided guys from Washington and Oregon and a lot of these other places where it's really thick and you really can't sneak, and that's all they know how to do when it comes to elk hunting, and they have absolutely thought I've been nuts for not just calling constantly and trying to call in bulls. And I've tried explaining this to them, and I think some of them get it and some of them don't. But you can definitely overuse your calls. Absolutely.
Is it going to surprise you when it's all said and done if the early rifle hunters, the general consensus is the early rifles and hunters in 3C struggle this week? Is that going to shock you?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, there's some great bulls out there, but there's not as good of bulls as what we're anticipating, if that makes sense. I think there's still bulls to show up in 3C, and weather, with the hot weather and as dry as it is and everything, full moon, how it all plays out, whether they show up during that rifle hunt or don't make an appearance until the archery hunt, it would not surprise me if they struggle.
And then also with that, will it surprise you if by the time the rifle and the archery hunt is over, that maybe a 400-inch bull, maybe two 400-inch bulls might come out of 3C?
Not one bit. I would be surprised if it's less than 2. Let me put it that way. There's some phenomenal antler growth this year. Absolutely amazing. I'm even going to go out on a limb and say that there'll be a 400-inch bull killed out of 4B this year.
Wow.
So it's unreal.
Wow.
Haven't seen it this good in a while.
When Arizona, yeah, I mean, when Arizona gets that moisture at the right time, it's one of these things. A lot of these other states, have been, in essence, kicking Arizona's butt. But, I mean, I keep saying that, Arizona, when it's wet, it can really jump up on and kind of take the top spot again. So it'll be fun to see how the season unfolds for sure. Buddy, I really appreciate you coming on and spending time with us. I want to give you a chance to let the listeners know where they can find you.
Best place to follow us is probably Instagram. We do that the most. We're horrible at it. We need to do better and update it more. But you can follow us on Instagram at Burnt Timber Outfitters, or you can follow myself, Franco_BTO, or my partner Mike Hancock at Mikey_BTO, as well as our guides. We're all on there. That's probably the best place. You can also find us on our website, www.burnttimberoutfitters.com. It's got our email address, phone numbers, feel free to reach out to us.
All right, buddy. Thanks for coming on and spending a little time with us. Good luck on all your seasons, and we'll be chatting at you after the season, and look forward to seeing your pictures on Instagram, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jay.
All right, buddy. Take care.